Hello everyone. In this class, we'll try to learn about what is visual acuity, what is visual field, what are light and dark adaptations, and what are visual reflexes. The learning objectives of this class would be to define and list the factors that are affecting the visual acuity, understand the physiological basis of tests for visual acuity, define visual field and learn its mapping, name the visual field effects produced by lesion at different levels of visual pathway, describe mechanisms of light adaptation and dark adaptation, name the visual reflexes and trace their pathways. Visual acuity is defined as the ability of eye to identify two closely placed points as two distinct points. The shortest distance by which two objects can be separated and still be visualized as two different objects is known as minimum separable distance. Visual acuity expresses the resolving power of the eye, that is, to the extent to which eye can perceive the details of counters of an object. The visual acuity is the function of the cones. There are different tests for testing visual acuity for distant vision and near vision. Factors affecting visual acuity are the optical factors, retinal factors, and stimulus factors. Among the optical factors, these mainly determine the degree of visual acuity. They include structures that take part in the image forming mechanisms of the eye and help in focusing an object, such as curvature of the cornea, curvature of the lens, plasticity of the lens, and condition of the ciliary muscles and the lens ligaments. Retinal factors they depend on the functional status of the cones. As the cones are concentrated more at the fovea, the visual acuity is highest in the fovea and decreases as you go towards the periphery. Stimulus factors depends on factors such as size of the object, distance of the object from eye, color of the object, contrast between the object and the background, shape and its borders, brightness of the object, and duration for which the object remains in view. Okay, so duration for which the object remains in view. These are some of the factors. The acuity decreases as size of the object increases and distance of the object from eye decreases. So thus visual acuity is directly proportional to the visual angle. Tests for visual acuity for distant vision is usually tested by the help of Snellen's charts, which contains rows of black capital letters against the white background. The rows are numbered as 60, 34, 24, 18, 12, 9, 6 and 5 from the top of the bottom. Okay. And the size of the letters of each row gradually decreases. Okay. And the size of the letter, the entire letter should subtend an angle of 5 minutes in the nodal point, whereas each arm subtend an angle of 1 minute at the nodal angle. And that is how the letters are constructed. So this will be at the 6 meter distance. The number below the row depicts the distance in meters from which the letter can be read by normal eye. The subject asked to read the chart with each eye separately from the distance of 6 meters. The numbers denoting the lowest row which is able to read is noted. The visual acuity is calculated using the formula small d by capital D, where the small d is the distance between the letters are read and the d is the distance at which the letters can be read by a normal eye. For example, if a person can read by his right eye the letter designated by the number 18, the visual acuity for right eye will be 6 by 18. The normal visual acuity is 6 by 6 for each eye. The visual acuity is 6 by 5 is called as supernormal, whereas person can read the last row from the distance of 6 meter. Test for near vision is tested by Jiger's chart, in which the subject is asked to read from the ordinary reading distance that is about 25 centimeters. The chart contains paragraph of different size letter sizes fonts, which the size increasing from 0.37 mm to 2.5 mm. The smallest print that the subject can read determines his visual acuity. Visual field is the area of the external world that can be seen when gaze is fixed. Okay. The visual field is limited on the medial side by bridge of the nose, superiorly by the roof of the orbit. So the field is not circular. The visual field plotted with one eye is known as monocular visual field. The visual field of both eyes overlap in the center and is called as binocular visual field. An object present in the binocular visual field can be seen by both the eyes simultaneously. Each visual field is divided into nasal, temporal portion. For each eye, the light rays from objects situated in the nasal field stimulate the temporal retina, and the light rays from an object situated in the temporal field stimulate the nasal retina. Also, light rays from objects located in the upper part of the visual field stimulate the lower part of the retina, and those from the lower part of the visual field stimulate the upper part of the retina. When person looks at an object with both the eyes, the light rays coming from object stimulate both the retinas. The action potential transmitted by the neural pathways from both the retinas get focused at the visual cortex so that the brain perceives them as a single image. So thus viewing an object as a single one with both the eyes is called as binocular vision. The 2 points on the retina on which the light rays from the object fall simultaneously to make binocular vision possible are known as corresponding points. The fovea and all points lying at the same distance and in the same direction from the fovea are corresponding points. For a distant object, the eyeballs move symmetrically, and for a near object, the eyeballs converge to allow the light rays to fall on corresponding points. When the light rays fall on non-corresponding points, the double vision, that is diplopia, occurs. For example, while looking at an object, if you slightly push the one eyeball out of the line, diplopia occurs. You must have observed that. When the light rays from any object do not fall on the corresponding points for a prolonged time, especially the children below 6 years of age, the diplopia is not seen as one of the images get suppressed, that is suppression scotoma, and this is a cortical phenomenon. So this suppression does not develop in adults. It should be detected and treated early, otherwise there occurs permanent loss of visual acuity in the eye in which the image is suppressed. Diplopia also occurs when the medial rectus or lateral rectus muscles damaged or overactivated. Mapping of the visual field. So this is done to diagnose visual field defects. For peripheral field, it is mapped by instrument called as perimeter, and the process is known as perimetry, in which the eye is mapped, each eye is mapped separately. The perimeter chart paper has a circles called as isopters around the central point, drawn at 10-degree interval across the radius from 0 to 90 degree. There are radial lines which are called as meridians that join the periphery at 10-degree intervals. During procedure, one eye is covered while the test eye is fixed on the central fixation point. A small contrast target moved slowly from periphery to the center in selected meridians along the arc of the instrument, completing the full circle. The spot where the target becomes first visible is marked in the chart paper. For the central field, the central visual field comprises area within the 30 degrees from the central point of fixation, and it is matched with Jerum's screen. The area where the target is not seen is designated as a blind spot or a scotoma. The scotoma area is mapped by noting the spot where the object disappeared to the point and where again it reappeared. The physiological blind spot is due to the optic disc observed on the temporal visual field. Visual field defects. The blindness of the visual field is known as anopia. Hemianopia means half blindness, which can be homonymous, that is the same side of the visual fields, or heteronymous or different visual fields. The lesion in the optic nerve cuts off impulse transmission from the eye and produces blindness of that visual field. The lesion in the optic chiasma damages the nasal fibers from both the eyes and produces bitemporal hemianopia. So this usually occurs tumors in anterior pituitary, especially in the growth hormone secreting somatotrophs, which the enlarged pituitary presses upon the optic chiasm and produces bitemporal hemianopia, a feature of acromegaly. Lesion of one side of temporal fibers produces blindness of the side of the nasal field. For example, lesion of the right side temporal fibers produces right nasal hemianopia. Lesion both the side of the temporal field produces binasal hemianopia. Lesion in the optic tract produces ipsilateral temporal fibers and contralateral nasal fibers, resulting in homonymous hemianopia. Lesion in the geniculocalcarine tract damages the ipsilateral temporal fibers and contralateral nasal fibers, resulting homonymous hemianopia with a macular sparing, as the macular fibers travel dorsal to the optic disc radiation and escape the damage. Lesion in the occipital damages the ipsilateral temporal fibers and contralateral nasal fibers occurs with the macular sparing. Visual adaptations. The human eye has the ability to discriminate and identify objects under a wide range of illumination. However, when light intensity changes dramatically, the visual system requires some time for adaptation of the eye to respond optimally. The visual system employs several mechanisms that work together in extreme conditions of illumination and help the eye to adapt to achieve optimum efficiency in that situation. The processes involved in visual adaptation can occur in the pupil, in the retina, that is chemical and neural, and higher up in the nervous system. The regulation of the pupillary size by iris can vary the light intensity about 16 folds. The visual adaptation is of two types: light adaptation and dark adaptation. So light adaptation is when person suddenly moves from dim light area to the broad daylight. Okay. So where initially the light seems to be very bright and uncomfortable and the image appears blurred. The visual system activates several mechanisms to adjust to the bright light so that vision improves after some time. Okay, so this is known as light adaptation. The light adaptation takes about 5 minutes. An immediate reaction to sudden bright light, the pupil constricts and amount of light entering in the retina is reduced. So mechanisms of light adaptation. There are two mechanisms of light adaptation: neural and chemical. Following the light stimulus, the sensitivity of the retinal receptors decreases, that manifest in the form of decreased burst of activity to the constant stimulus. The horizontal cells may feedback inhibitory effect upon the photoreceptors. Besides, with the increase in the light intensity, the amplitude of receptor response does not rise proportionately. This mechanism plays a greater role in quickly bringing down the sensitivity of the receptors, so that the light adaptation is mainly a neural mechanism. In the bright light, the rhodopsin is rapidly converted into all trans retinal and opsin. Due to the bleaching, the rod responsiveness decreases considerably as the rhodopsin becomes less available. Okay, so as the rods fail to respond to the further bright light, the cones come into play. Thus, with the increase in the light intensity, the rods become deactivated and the cones get stimulated. When the rhodopsin levels fall by 7%, the vision is taken over by the cones. The image appears less bright as the cones are less sensitive to light than the rods. Further, in hyperpolarized rods, so there is a reduced calcium influx that removes the inhibitory effect on the guanyl cyclase. As a result, cyclic JMP levels restored that increase the sensitivity of the photoreceptors. After some time, the chemical mechanism have a lesser role in light adaptation. Dark adaptation. If a person stays for a long time in a bright light, in bright sunlight, and then moves into the dim lit room, I mean, he experiences a temporary blindness that improves after a few minutes. During this time, his eyes adjust to the low levels of illumination, a phenomenon that is known as dark adaptation. The maximum dark adaptation occurs is about in 20 minutes. In dim light, the pupil dilate to allow the maximum possible light through the eye to have a optimal vision. Okay, so similar to uh, the light adaptation, there are two mechanisms of dark adaptation: the neural and chemical. The neural mechanism, the first phase of adaptation occurs due to the decrease in the threshold of the cones that occurs within the 5 to 10 minutes. So this increases the retinal sensitivity to 100 times. In the second phase of adaptation, the rod threshold falls, reaching its maximum about 20 minutes, okay, and the retinal sensitivity increases up to 1000 to 10,000 times. As the rods are more sensitive than the cones, so in the low levels of illumination of the darkened room, the visual capacity depends mainly on the rods. Chemical adaptation: in the dark, there occurs regeneration of the photopigment rhodopsin. During the exposure to the bright light, due to the conversion of rhodopsin into all trans retinal and opsin, the no rhodopsin is available that can be activated by the light. Okay. So hence rods become insensitive to light. Rods cannot respond completely again until rhodopsin is restored to its resting state. So this process requires several minutes, during which the level of rhodopsin increases, and increasing the sensitivity of the rods to the proportionately. In the retina, the rod concentration is more in area that is about 15 to 20 degree from the fovea. The dark adapted retina is so most sensitive to light in this region. As a whole, the dark adapted retina is around 10,000 times more sensitive than the white light adapted one, than the light adapted one. Vitamin A is required for the synthesis of retinine, so vitamin A deficiency adversely affects the dark adaptation ability, and the condition is known as night blindness, in which the person has impaired vision in the evening and the dim light. Okay. So the factors affecting the dark adaptation are: the time taken to accomplish full dark adaptation depends on the intensity, duration, and wavelength of the light to which the eyes were exposed when the person was in bright light. Okay, so if the light was very bright, or if the eyes were exposed for longer time, the dark adaptation requires longer time. Longer wavelength of light, such as red color, stimulates the cone to a fair extent, but rods are relatively insensitive to it. So, the person previously exposed to red light becomes rapidly dark adapted. Okay, so this is how when the person is in bright light, suddenly the rhodopsin is broken down, and the time required for resynthesis of rhodopsin is actually the time taken for the dark adaptation. Okay, so deficiency of vitamin uh, will inhibit the production of the rhodopsin synthesis, and the night blind person will usually take a longer time, or sometimes uh, for the night uh, dark adaptation. Okay, so here you can see, there is increase in the sensitivity of the cones, okay, and decrease in the threshold. Okay, so that occurs with initially with the rod, initially with the cones. Okay, so in this area, and then there will be activation of the rhodopsin, so that increases the sensitivity of the rhodopsin. Okay, and then by the time it reaches 25 minutes, most of the rods they become active, and they become responsible for the dark adaptation. Okay, so initially the cones gets adapted, and later the rods gets adapted by increasing the sensitivity and by decreasing the threshold of rods. Okay, so usually dark adaptation takes around 25 minutes. Visual reflexes, light reflexes. When light is focused on one eye, the pupils of both eye constrict, so this is called as light reflex. The pupillary constriction occurring in the stimulated eye is called as direct light reflex, and the other eye it is called as consensual light reflex. The latent period of the response is 0.5 to zero point 0.5 seconds. Afferent pathway, the first order neurons from the retinal ganglia cells project to the pretectal nucleus. From here, the second order neurons start and proceed to midbrain, that is the Edinger-Westphal nucleus. Efferent pathways, the parasympathetic fibers of the oculomotor nerve, form the first order neurons, so that originate from the midbrain Edinger-Westphal nucleus and project to the ciliary ganglion. The second order neurons start from here and innervate the sphincter pupillae. Accommodation reflex, where the pupils both the eyes constrict looking at the near object, and this is called as accommodation reflex. So this is the pathway for the light reflex and the consensual light reflex. Okay, so the afferent comes from optic nerve, optic tract, the pretectal nucleus of the superior canicula, Edinger-Westphal nucleus. Okay, so then the motor response to the ciliary ganglion, sphincter pupillae, which causes pupillary sphincter, uh, will cause a right reflex. In the opposite, okay, so since it has got a bilateral innervation, so it also causes the activation of the contralateral Edinger-Westphal nucleus, uh, causes the constriction of the this contraction of the ciliary ganglion, uh, and it is going to cause the constriction of the sphincter pupillae. Okay, so that causes the consensual light reflex on the uh, uh, contralateral eye. So this is the pathway for the accommodation reflex, where uh, when you shift the gaze from the object to the near object, so the information goes to the visual cortex 17, then to the Westphal nucleus, so then to the oculomotor nerve. Okay, so that causes the contraction of the ciliary muscle, sphincter pupillae, and the medius rectus muscle. Okay, so that is going to cause the increase in the convexity of the lens, constriction of the pupil, and the convergence, that is the medial rotation of the eyeball. Okay, so 3 C's leads to accommodation reflex. Afferent pathway is the first order neurons from retinal ganglia that cells project into the LGB. From here, the second order neurons start in the area 17, from where The third order neurons start to proceed to midbrain Edinger-Westphal nucleus. Efferent pathways from the striate cortex via occipito-mesencephalic pathway. Impulse travels to the oculomotor nerve nucleus, then to sphincter pupillae, ciliary muscle, and the medial rectus. So, what is Argyll-Robertson pupil? In neurological lesions, the pretactal superior colliculi region of the mesencephalon, the fibers mediating right light reflexes are damaged. In this classical pupillary abnormality, which is seen in neurosyphilis, which is not seen in nowadays because of the syphilis, we have effective treatment in the early stage. Okay, so here light reflexes, both direct and consensual light reflexes are lost, but accommodation reflex is present. Okay, so that is why ARP, Argyll-Robertson pupils reflex, accommodation reflex is present. Okay, accommodation reflex is present because the fibers for accommodation reflex take a different course. Okay, so this is all about the class.